Hey, it's Jen, and welcome back to our community. This podcast is where we're getting real about wellness rituals, life-changing habits, and having relatable conversations with friends about mental health, social media, morning routines, or lack thereof. And we're talking about that thing that you thought no one else could relate to. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our community. If you're watching over here on YouTube, dyed my hair back. So we are out of our copper era. I'm back to, it's actually not my natural hair. My natural hair is a little less dark. My natural hair is like a dark chocolate brown or like a milk chocolate brown. It's still pretty dark, but this is like more gearing towards black, but it's all the same. I love it. I am so happy I was like kind of over the copper era, even though I absolutely loved it, like really loved it. I don't know. I think I just like, I crave change. I can't stay in one thing for too long. And now hair is like a way of me navigating change. So just another expensive habit. But let's dive into what was in alignment and out of alignment this week. So what was in alignment this week, let me think. I mentioned last week I haven't really been preparing these like I used to. I'm kind of more of an off the cuff girl these days. I would say what's in alignment, if you watched my latest vlog on YouTube, is I really pulled myself out of I was really out of my routine. I was traveling, we were moving, and I feel like this week we made so much progress on the apartment. Like, even when we just relax that night and say, okay, we're not doing apartment stuff, we're not doing this, like, let's just freaking relax. Which, of course, I'm always working while we're relaxing, but we're able to actually hang out and enjoy the space and like stretch on the floor. And it sounds so silly, but like, it really makes you appreciate coming from like a dark, tiny dungeon where your kitchen was your living room and it was like 5 centimeters long, having a full living room. It's like if you're not from New York City, you still probably wouldn't think it's that big, but like for New York City, it feels big. And having space to stretch, to like have a freaking like giggling wrestling attack, like just I just feel us being less. I don't know. We were like so irritable, and obviously that's still going to happen, but not, we're still in a tiny space. But I just feel we feel less on top of each other. We feel like when we're relaxing at night, it's like actually enjoyable and it just changes everything. So that's definitely in alignment for me this week. What was out of alignment? If I'm completely honest, today what's out of alignment is I had a rough morning and I'm really excited to just kind of nip that in the bud. Like I'm so proud of it's the reason that I'm so passionate about self-care. Like I don't think I really speak on my why enough because I actually posted about it this week because I saw Victoria Garrick posted something and then I reposted it because it just made me feel so connected to her and less alone. When you have people in your life that you love that struggle mentally, it's a hard thing because or with addiction or whatever it might be. I mean, I've been really open about my sister's addiction. She's been wanting to come on the podcast. Like she's an open book too. We just like haven't sat down to actually podcast, but I've just been kind of surrounded by mental health struggles and all that my whole life by like many people in my life. And Victoria posted about something just saying like the silent struggle that is like almost struggling about other people's suffering. And it just hit so hard for me. And I want to do a whole solo episode about this, just like how you can just feel like you have to suffer in silence because it's not your story to tell. And people don't check in on those that are harboring other people's stuff, Like if a friend struggles with, some mental health struggle, and then you're the one that they're like putting everything on and calling every day instead of a therapist, let's say, this is just an example. No one checks in on that friend, right? So I am kind of like the perpetual, like my whole life, I'm not the friend, but like the person who's on the other side of it who I don't know. I feel like I'm speaking in riddles. So anyway, I just had a kind of a rough morning this morning as it relates to that, I guess, just like dealing with loved ones. And so my point is the reason there's so many layers to it and why I'm so passionate about self-care, but a huge thing for me was like once I started prioritizing finding healthier habits and outlets. It's like cool that now my healthy habits have become my outlets, right? So like I had a rough morning. I'm coming to the podcast to record this intro, regardless of how my morning went. I'm still carrying on and going to go to the gym and just like vibe out in the gym and let it be my outlet. So, being able to find these healthy habits that become like your soul outlets that you need, it just enhances your life so much. And I'm so proud of myself that I'm able to not let it consume my entire life, because there was a time where if one thing happened, I was out for the day, and I think we've all been there, and it's still going to happen, but like certain things you just kind of have to accept, like these things are going to happen. I'm not saying like, oh, someone dies and then like you should carry on with the rest of your day. I'm talking like the smaller things that you should be able to just be upset about and then take it on the chin and like, what's the next right best thing that we can do to feel better? So that's where I'm at today. I'm excited. I'm going to still go to the gym. It really delayed my day. It's later than I wanted it to be right now, but that's okay. We're still going to carry on with the day. So let's breathe in what was in alignment for us and out what was out of alignment for us. And if anything I say ever resonates with you, or if you want to share what was in and out of alignment for you just to feel a little less alone or feel more connected, slide into my DMs, go into our Geneva chat, and we can talk about it there. Okay, if you are someone who loves or is so interested in or fascinated by travel, this is the episode for you. We're talking solo travel, safety tips on solo travel. I know you guys loved our last episode where we dove into this, but then also like we're talking how to plan for a really long travel trip, like financially, logistically, with your career. Like I'm diving in deep. I'm like, how did you actually do this? What are tangible tips that you guys could take away from it? Just really all things travel, traveling full time, traveling and making money, solo trips, like how to go on a trip when you also have a significant other that you want to share it with. What are the benefits of solo travel? All of it. So if you love travel or you're interested in it and travel as self care and all of the things, this is the episode for you. She really inspired me. I think Emily is amazing. We also talk about how she grew her Instagram platform from nothing before she ever even traveled. She has an Instagram called Emily Eats and Explores, and I believe she grew it to like 50K or something crazy before she ever left and did the traveling. So I thought that was so impressive and inspiring. So there's some juicy social media tips in here as well. All right, let's get into the episode. Well, the reason I reached out to you was because you teach women how to make money while they travel the world solo.
Heck yes.
And like, what a freaking tagline. So, why travel?
I have been obsessed with travel ever since I was little. Like, honestly, I had my friends and family, they would go home from school and they would watch like SpongeBob and, all those kind of shows that we watched when we were younger. I would go home and I would watch Samantha Brown. And if you guys don't know her, I know a lot of people know Rick Steves. She is like the female version of Rick Steves, but she's even better. She's amazing. So
On
she would
YouTube or her show?
it was her show. It's called, she has Places to Love right now. She actually still has a show out. She's still going strong.
Wow.
But it was Passport to Paris or Passport to Europe that I would watch. And then she had another one where she would just go into these hotels, and I was obsessed with it. And I was like, I want to be Samantha Brown when I'm older. So I would go home and I would go right to the TV and I would watch it. And that's kind of like how everything started. My family, we would travel here and there, but it wasn't anything extreme. Like, I feel like it's your kind of typical, like, your suburban like family. Like, we would go to Florida and visit grandparents. We would go to Disney World. We went on cruises once in a while, but we never did anything crazy and like exotic, I guess. Yeah. It was nothing out of the ordinary, except we did do a road trip around the US for a summer, which was really fun. And yeah, so that's where my love for travel started. And as you get older, it's a bit harder to get everyone together. So that's how I dove right into solo travel.
Okay, well, I'm going to start watching those shows because my boyfriend and I, we love watching like Somebody Feed Phil.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, like, we sing that jingle all the time because we love those shows, and I actually grew up my dad was he didn't travel outside the country until he was 50 something, and he took us with him, and so he's really passionate about photography and travel, and I think, honestly, all of my siblings, we all caught the bug from him, and then it wasn't until my boyfriend and I 2 years ago we always loved travel, but we went on a trip to Thailand and we didn't plan half of it. And we had never to go that far and planned so minimally was one of the most freeing
Mhm.
experiences of my entire life. And we were talking about this the other day about how there's something to travel and being that free and that away from home and stepping into an entirely different culture, especially like that, where you almost realize how small you are and how small where you
Mhm.
live is, and you're in this bubble your whole life, and you think it's the way that so many other people live, or it's just all you know, and you just realize we kept saying in Thailand, like, nothing matters. Like, you're so stressed about leaving work and leaving all these things, and then you get somewhere and, like, literally nothing matters, and people live so differently than you do on a day to day. Is that something that you personally experience from travel? Like, is that something that you love about it in terms of, like, personal growth?
I think that definitely can be a part of it, but I also love how it shows how similar we are as well, and how you can connect with these people from different places, all different walks of life. And, we all have like the same struggles and the same ups and downs. And we're all just trying to like get through life and do our best and like have good relationships and, see the world. And, there are obviously a lot of things that you can learn from different cultures, and that's been amazing because I think I grew up pretty like sheltered, quote unquote. We would have like the same exact meals every week, and a lot of my friends had very similar lives as well, so it definitely does open you up to a lot of new experiences and new people and new cultures. So I definitely do love that. But I also love like connecting with these people and being like, oh, like I don't know if we would have, anything in common sometimes, but you do, and then you now have friends all over the world. It's amazing.
Wait, I love that. I never thought of it that way, and it's so true. I know we keep circling back to this Thailand trip because was so life-changing for us, but we went to a yoga class on the beach one morning, and, like, even if you live entirely different lives than these people, you have a common interest of wellness or yoga or whatever it might be, or even just a personality trait. And it's so true. You can connect with so many outside of your circle and your circumstances and whatnot. And it's almost like a spiritual practice of oneness. I absolutely love that. But if anyone's listening, I do want to dive into like the juice here and like the nitty gritty. So, teaching women how to make money while traveling solo, there's so many parts to that. But what is step one? Someone hears that, someone sees the title of this podcast and they're like, that is my dream, or they think it's
Mhm.
their dream, or they're curious about it, and they have no fucking idea where to start. What is step one?
So for me, it was content creation. And I think that is the way that everybody thinks that you can travel and make money. But I realize that's not for everyone. So there are so many different steps that you can take, which is why I created my course on this. But I started with content creation. So I started with an Instagram. I was planning on taking a career break. So I was just going to post pictures and videos for my friends and family. And it kept getting pushed off, pushed off. So I was posting tips and tricks. And then that just blew up from there. So I
On
think
Instagram?
on Instagram.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. On Instagram, yeah, I was just posting. I was just talking about like prepping for this 6-month trip to Southeast Asia. And, I was going to go solo. So talking all about that and sharing, what I was going to do, tips for solo travel. And it just kind of blew up from there. So I think if you want to go the content creation route, definitely just getting on a social media platform, whichever one calls to you, and start posting valuable content to your audience. That's what's really important. But if you don't want to go the content creation route, you can get a remote job. There's a bunch of different remote work sites, like a site like Indeed. There's those just for remote work. There's travel jobs that you can do. So you could work on a yacht sailing around Croatia. You could be a tour guide, a tour leader, and you can get paid to actually travel the world. There's freelancing that you can do. So you can become a VA, a social media manager. There's so many different things. So going all those routes, that's why I talk about all of those, because some people don't want to be on social media. That's not their thing. Maybe they don't want a blog or a podcast even. So that's why I want to tell people there are so many different ways for you to do this and for you to live this lifestyle.
And I really want to get into the logistics there. And that's already, I mean, that's so inspiring, even thinking about just like, okay, virtual assistant, as long as you can do it from anywhere at any time, whatever the job is, you really can travel. But I do want to dive into the logistics of that and like the finances and all of that. But just to take it back a step, what was that decision like for you in terms of what career were you in? And then how did you make that decision and prep to take that leap and say, okay, I'm going to leave for 6 months?
Yes, great question. So I was an epidemiologist. I went right from college into graduate school for public health. I got my master's of public health and went right from that into a job in epidemiology. I worked in a hospital, a government hospital, and I did that for about 4 years. It was during the pandemic, so 2020. I was really missing travel, and I knew one person in my life that had left their job to go to Southeast Asia and travel around. And I started looking into this a bit more, and I decided, okay, I'm going to take a career break, because I didn't know at that time you could make money while traveling. I thought everybody who was on YouTube or was posting about it on social media, I thought they were all just saved up and took time off from work to travel and have a bit of fun before they went back to their 9-to-5 life. So that was always the plan. So to prep for this, I put a percentage of my paycheck every single month or bi-weekly automatically went right into a different account so I could save for this trip. I was planning to save about $20,000 to travel for 6 months, which is you could travel for a year on that, especially in Southeast Asia, even more than that. Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. But I was so nervous. Like, I have always had this like more like limiting mindset around money. And I had a job since I was 12. Like, I was working since I was 12. So to think about not having a job was just terrifying to me. So I decided I was going to save as much money as I could. And I said $20,000. I also worked 2 other jobs. So I had one career. I was a house director of a sorority. So I actually got housing, food, all of that provided for me. So it allowed me to save a lot of money. So one of my biggest things that I tell people is try to reduce your housing costs in some way, because that is massive when you're trying to save for either career break or leaving your job. And then I also had another job as a birth doula. So I had a lot of different income streams, 3 at the time, which I thought was a lot. So I saved for that. Again, it kept getting put off because it was closing. So I was able to save even more money. I also went really hard on my student loans. I just didn't want my student loans to like be holding me over while I was on this trip. So I paid those off. I went really hard on those. You don't have to do that, especially if you don't have as high of interest. But it's just something that I didn't want to have while I was traveling. And then I left my house director position, and I kind of just bopped around between my fiance's house, who was my boyfriend at the time, and my parents for a little while until I left to leave my job. So yeah, I sold a lot of my stuff. Everything I own fits in my car. And then I have 2 boxes of memorabilia in my parents. I had to figure out health insurance, which was super stressful. But when I actually went about to do it, it was really easy. It was a 30-minute phone call and I got everything set up. And then I just get travel insurance when I'm out of the States. And yeah, I think those were the biggest things, the money and definitely insurance, still wanting to invest and do all of that. Those were the things that, because when you get your job, you're like, okay, I'm a big girl now. Like, I'm doing all of these big girl things. And then when you leave your job, it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm kind of regressing. So I wanted to do, I still wanted to keep up with all those things that I knew that were going to be important in the future. I'm not the type of person that's like, I'm just going to leave my job and have $20 in my bank account. Some people that works for and they can figure it out and they like that thrill. That's just not me.
Okay, I have like 1,000 follow-up questions. One quick one before I get into the others. Is this something you help other people do now, like figure all of those logistics out?
I haven't done that specifically myself. That's almost like, kind of living that digital nomad lifestyle or the career break lifestyle. That isn't something that, I talk about mindset and lifestyle a bit in my course, but the more of the logistics of it isn't something that I usually, teach people or talk about in my videos and stuff. I do get questions about it here and there because it does seem really complicated. And at the end of the day, it's not as complicated as you think it is. But more questions I get are just surrounding how the heck do I make money?
Okay, cool. Well, then I'm glad that we touched on it here because it's not something you typically dive into. So, okay, now you're on your 6-month trip. First of all, are you making money in any other ways while you're on this 6-month trip, or your mindset was like, I'm just doing this for 6 months and like I'm going to be on a career break completely?
Mm-hmm. So at that point, I actually had $40,000 saved. So I said I could do this for a year. I had a budget of $100 a day. So I was like, okay, $100 a day. I will do this for a year. So that was my idea at the time. I definitely still had like an end date in mind. When I left my job, I had about 15,000 followers on Instagram at the time. So I was making $300 to $500 a month, I would say, from like content creation.
I
But
have a quick question.
yeah, go for
How
it.
how did you garner those followers without actually traveling yet?
That's a good question. So I posted almost no actual travel content during this time. It was all tips and tricks, but I really honed in on my brand and my personal brand. So anytime someone saw me, they immediately knew it was a video of me. I had this map background that I used. I wore this white shirt, which I'm wearing in this video right now. I curled my hair. I pretty much did that in every single video. And then I also posted like graphics from that I would make on Canva. So it was really focused on just tips and solo travel tips. So people immediately knew it was me. And I think that was really what helped me, is that they're like, okay, I've been seeing this girl like 3 times on my explore page or my whatever. Oh, maybe I should follow her because I've seen her. Because they would immediately know it was me because of that map background. And I think that's where I got a lot of my followers that way.
So had you been solo traveling a little bit here and there to garner those tips and tricks, or you were just totally doing your own research in preparation for this?
At that point, I had only been on one international solo trip.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it was only one at that time.
It's inspiring, honestly. You were like, I have a plan and I'm not going to wait until I travel to actually make this happen. That was really smart. Also, like the branding aspect of it, making yourself super recognizable, making yourself stand out with the map in the background. That's really, really smart.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just learned that from the Instagram experts. There was one
Right.
woman that did it. She wore the same outfit. She, did her hair the same. She had the same background. So I was like, she grew so fast. So I was like, maybe I should do this too, because I can't go out and travel right now. And I wasn't doing anything. I was posting maybe a picture of me traveling here and there so people knew that I actually did travel, but most of it was just providing my audience value.
So smart. And I'm curious how long ago this was because I know it's like way harder to grow in that way on Instagram now. And it's all TikTok, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. So this was I grew 1,000 I hit 1,000 January of 2022. And by the
Wow.
end of the year, I was at almost 50,000. So I grew almost 49,000 followers in 1 year. And yeah.
Oh my god, good for you. I'm assuming this is when, like, Reels just started to hit, so you really took advantage of that?
Yeah, I actually didn't get on the Reels game
Oh
for
god.
quite a while. I think during when I first started my Instagram, so I started my Instagram in May of 2021, and I wasn't posting consistently really until like November of 2021. And I got an Instagram coach and everything to kind of help me because I was like, maybe I can make
Smart.
content from this. So I hired an Instagram coach, Maya Nickel, shout out. And yeah, so if I remember I posted my first reel in July of 2021 and I got over 1,000 views on that, and I think I had 20 followers at the time, and I just like shit my pants. So if I kept doing that, I probably would be, I don't even know where I would be, but I'm happy with my journey anyway. I wouldn't go back, but I had no idea how to make a reel or what to do, and they were intimidating at the time, so I really didn't go full in on reels. I don't think until like, yeah, December. And I think they were still the hot thing to do. I mean, they're still the hot thing to do, but they weren't, you weren't getting as many views and as many followers and things from them.
Yeah, it sounds like investing in that coach was a really smart tactic. You had a long-term goal and
Mhm.
you invested even while trying to save money. You knew that it was important to invest and look where it
Mhm.
got you. I just invested in a YouTube like 90-day program coach because I have that same feeling of like, okay, I know the exact goal I want and I have an intuition, like an intuitive feeling that it's going to happen, but like if I want that return on investment, we're gonna have to invest and
Mhm.
really like, it's nice to have someone guide you along the way in that
Mhm.
strategy. I also geek out on the strategy clearly because 'cause I'm, like, asking a million questions about that, but back to you are on your six-month trip. I'm curious, are you, first of all, traveling full-time now?
So I'm not. I traveled full time for this is a whole story in itself. I
Okay,
traveled full time for about 7.5 months.
okay.
So I left my job and I traveled pretty much all the way through that until like, yeah, November or something of this year. And then I've been in the US for about 3 months, and I will be home here for 4 months. I was creating my course. I also have a fiance, so I'm staying here with him,
Oh
which
my
I
goodness.
always get this question about.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I didn't realize that. Okay, I was gonna go a different direction with this, and I wanna get back to the, like, traveling full time of it all, but just to start in quickly your relationship, because
Mhm.
I personally I was gonna say I had someone come on about solo travel before, and people were asking this question, and I feel the same exact way.
Mhm.
How, when you have a partner, are you feeling first of all, how are you nourishing your relationship through so while you're, traveling full time without them?
Mhm.
I guess that's the question.
Yeah, good question. So we are in a very unique spot, I think. So we have been together for 10 years.
Thank
We were
you.
together since we were 18 years old. We met like the first night of college. And so we have always done some distance once in a while because we obviously met in college. We live in the same state, but on different sides of the state. So it's about 3 hours to get to one another. So it's not something that, especially when you're first dating, you're not going to go drive out there like right away.
Yeah.
So, during the summers, he also played on the baseball team at our college that we went to. So he was like, even when he had time off, he didn't really have time off because he was basically working. When you're a Division 1 athlete like that, it's a job. So even in the summers and even in the winters, like he would be, basically working. So during those times, we didn't see each other that much. So it was 4 years, and then he got a job out near Boston, and then I got a job where I was, and then I also got the sorority house director position. So we have always like we lived together our second half of senior year, but that's really the only time we've spent like consistent amount of time together. We also lived together like a bit during the pandemic and stuff when we were able to kind of move around. But yeah, so we have always done distance. So it's not something that is weird for us at all. This has been a dream of mine for so long, and he's super, super supportive of that. So he would never like deter me from doing it or anything. We're both really big on, having our own, our own things, our own passions, and like really supporting each other in that way. So when I'm traveling, it can be a bit challenging, especially when I'm on different time zones. But we always try to do at least a call or a FaceTime once a day and just, chat about what's going on. I try to send him like little pictures during the day and be like, oh my God, like I had this meal, you would love this, something like that to kind of like bring him in. But it's been totally normal, and it's something I honestly don't think about that much now, because it's just something we have really always done, and it's always been some part of our relationship in some way.
I always say this, every single person who's come on and shares this with me, that they've been with their partner for like over 10 years or since high school, because I have as well.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person has the shared experience of being so independent. And I
Mm.
think there's so many reasons for that, which we don't even need to dive into, but it's just so fascinating to me that these long-term relationships breed that kind of individuality and independence within each person. It's so interesting to me. Has he ever been able to like join a trip or visit you?
So he does once in a while. He's a real estate agent, so basically that's running your own business. And it's not like your typical 9 to 5 where you like have time off and you have the weekends. Like, his clients want to see houses on the weekends, and it's just him. So if he's not there and he's not doing those things, he could potentially be losing money. So it's not as easy when you're a business owner and you actually have to be in person. So what's really important for him, like family is super, super important for him. So what we do is we go on a 2 week trip. We're actually leaving in a few weeks for this. We do a 2 week road trip to Florida every year to go see his family. And that's kind of our big trip of the year. And then if he can come one place, he will. So this year we're going to Italy,
Nice.
which will be really, really fun. We're going to do that for probably 2 weeks. So whenever he has time available and, can take that time out of his business, he'll come with me. But he just does not have the same flexibility that I have.
Totally. So do you now prioritize, now that you're staying put, low rent so that you can continue to live a lifestyle where you can just go take your solo trips frequently?
That's a good question. So I actually do not pay rent. So when I'm back in the States, I'm usually, I'll be in the other side of Massachusetts with my family. So my parents have a lake house. So sometimes I'll stay there. When I'm with my fiance, we're actually at his parents' house, and they moved down to Florida. So we have a really good gig going on where
Yeah.
we don't neither of us pay rent. We obviously will pay like utilities and like help out with things like that. But yeah, we have a good gig. So I'm very thankful for that.
Totally, but how do you deal with not having like your, clearly it's not a priority for you, but I'm just curious, like not having your own home base, not having your own space. Is that you, and you could, the answer could be no, but is that ever a struggle for you with your, traveling frequently?
It definitely is. I would love to have something more solid like in the future. We're probably just going to move into his parents' house like full time. But yeah, I mean, it's been okay. All my stuff again is like in my car, so I don't have a lot of stuff. It is a bit frustrating when I want to find something, and sometimes I can't because maybe I would like leave it at like my sister's house or my parents' house or my fiance's house or my friend's house. Like I'm trying to visit friends too, and my friends are all over the US. So that's something that can be a little bit frustrating, because you're kind of living out of backpacks and suitcases. But I'm so grateful for it. Like, I would not want to live any other way right now. Obviously, I do, like, I need to settle down at some point. Not this year because I have 5 million conferences and things to go to. I have a lot of like work events this year. But yeah, I think it would be really nice to know my stuff is in one space. But usually I do because in my car somewhere. I just need to find it.
Well, your priority and what you're passionate about can just so take over your life. Like, I
Mhm.
know a lot of people who are entrepreneurial or want to make it in social media or whatever it might be, whatever their, art or passion is. It's like you just care about that one thing so much that the other sacrifices don't even freaking matter. So I totally
Mhm.
get that. And we'll get into more of the fun stuff in a second, but just staying on like the struggle bus for a second.
Mhm.
I think full-time travel is so glamorized, and I personally, like,
Mhm.
find it so I can like, innately figure out the struggles that would come with it, but I also find it so freeing for all the reasons I mentioned before and
Yeah.
more. What are some things during your, like, big 7-month, full-time travel lifestyle that were your biggest struggles that you might not have known or realized ahead of time, even though you did plan it out so well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I did have everything planned, but then when I went to travel, it was so random. Like it would be 10 o'clock at night and I would have no idea where I was going the next day. So the trip itself wasn't actually ever planned out. I had some places that I needed to go and some places, here and there, but
But,
other than
like,
that,
financially and whatnot, you planned ahead of time, like, for those
yes,
stressors, yeah.
absolutely. Yes. And that was just something that I was comfortable with doing. Again,
Yeah.
it's not something that you need to absolutely do. But I think the biggest thing for me it was definitely just I burnt out like really not fast, but it was faster than I thought I was going to. Like I thought I was going to be able to live this lifestyle a little bit longer, and it was definitely something that I had like a bit of guilt for, that I did want to go home and like spend time with my family and my fiance because I was planning for this for so long. And but when I went into it, I definitely still had that like limiting belief, like this scarcity mindset that this wasn't going to last forever. So I needed to do everything and I needed to go everywhere and I needed to be out and about and I needed to get as much content as I could. And like, because I had no idea how long this was going to last. And that is just like a recipe for disaster. So now, you live and you learn. But that was something I wasn't really expecting. Like I knew it was going to be tiring here and there, but I didn't know, even though I didn't feel tired, I didn't realize how quickly like my body felt it like versus
Yeah.
my mind, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain.
No, that makes
Um,
complete sense, and I feel like that's so real, like, I can only imagine if I'm planning for this big trip for so long and plan and like prepping with the content creation and investing in a
mhm,
coach and all of these things and then feeling burnt out but feeling so guilty about that burnout and feeling like why am I, why would I take a break or a rest day to just sit in this Airbnb or
mhm,
this hostel when there's so much I could be creating and doing out there. Like I can only imagine like that is probably the most relatable thing that I never really thought about, which is why I asked this question, but I
mhm.
can already tell you right now, if I were you, I would feel the same exact way.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a person that does like my alone space too. And I was staying in a lot of hostels and things, and which is nice. It's a great way for you to meet people, but it is really nice to like have your own space. Um, and I was traveling like during the height of summer in Europe, so prices like were not
Yeah.
we're not where you want them to be. So, but hostels again are like a great option. So that was something that could definitely be challenging as well. But yeah, so I talk about that like on my Instagram a lot now, is like having your taking a time to rest. I have this 5-day rule now where I have to stay in a place for at least 5 days, which is a time to get there, a time to work, a time to explore, a day to rest, and then your day to leave.
I like
So
that.
yeah.
It's so true. Even especially it's so even more so when you're not full time because you prep and plan for so long to take your
Mhm.
PTO and take the 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever you have, and it's like, when do you ever in that scenario take a rest day? You would
Right.
never.
Right.
It's so tiring.
Yeah, exactly. But then you can, go home and maybe you have a
Right.
day, your Sunday where you can just chill. But Yeah, it was really interesting. And it was also really interesting, like this label that I put on myself when I left was like, I'm now this full-time traveler. And it's like I left my job to like not be in this box and not be in this bubble. And then I like put
Right.
myself in another bubble. And then I was like, wait, but I don't really want to travel full time. Like maybe like a couple months here, like 1 month here, like go back home and just chill. And then I'm like, can I call myself a full time traveler? Am I not a digital nomad? Am I part time traveler now? Like, I don't even know. And it's like, you don't really need to label yourself
Yeah.
that way, but we feel like we do, especially when we're talking about it on social media.
Totally, and we're used to these, like, corporate scenarios where you're given an exact job title and you could say exactly what you do and where you do it,
Mhm.
and so we're so tempted to have that, but what you were looking for was more fluidity and more
Yeah.
freedom, so I totally get that. If someone doesn't want or isn't necessarily looking to right now, like, travel full time and make money while traveling, blah, 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 well, everyone wants to make money, but point being, can we just talk about solo travel in general if someone's, like, wanting to take their first solo trip?
Hmm.
First of all, how do you go about making friends? Did you find that a struggle, or are you someone who makes friends super easily?
This was something that was really interesting for me because I generally do make friends easily. Um, and it's just something that happens more naturally. So when I went on my first solo trip, I was surprised at how hard it was for me. And I think it was a lot of different things. It was my first time in a hostel. There were a lot of people that were there for work, so not as much travel. If you go to some place like South America or Southeast Asia, all like a lot of those people are going to be travelers. Not many of them are going to be there for work. And I went to Denmark, so a lot of people, were there for work. It wasn't during a time of like a holiday or anything where people my age were traveling. So that was a bit challenging for me. And so I do like bringing that up, that like I did have to put myself out there and like get the courage and go up to people and like talk to people in my dorm room and like ask questions and like talk to people in the line. And but I spent most of my time on that solo trip alone, and for me, like that's totally fine. Like I'm an introvert at heart. I really like being alone, so that was okay for me. But at the time I felt like I wasn't doing it right because I didn't make 5 million friends and I didn't have these crazy experiences. But when I'm like, okay, this is actually who I am as a person, I'm totally fine being alone. So that's why I don't feel like I need to like go out of my way to find people. Then I felt a little bit better about it. And I was like, okay, I actually had like a really good time and a really good experience, even though I didn't spend every second with another person that I had just met.
Okay, I think that's so important because I'm picturing myself going on a solo travel trip for like a week or 2 or even less, and I because I think it's different if you're traveling for 7 months. I think loneliness is a real thing and you should put yourself out there, but if I was going on a quickie solo trip, not like a full-time situation, I enjoy alone time, and I feel like it would be a time for me to tune in and be introspective and
Mm-hmm.
reflect and all of that, and I totally am 100% sure that I would be feeling like I wasn't doing it right
Yeah.
because people who solo travel are those people who stay at hostels and make friends and go out with people, and I would totally feel that internal pressure and external pressure as well, so I'm
Mhm.
so, so glad that you said that.
Yeah. I'm also at this age where even if I do meet people, if I'm not connecting with them or clicking with them, like I can just go off and do my own thing. I feel like that's really hard when you're younger. Like you just don't want to be surrounded by
Yeah,
the like negative people, or you meet a lot of
yeah.
different like characters on the road. So I'm totally okay with that. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I see a lot on social media, like you're traveling solo, like it's so easy to meet people, like this is how I meet people, it's like takes 5 seconds. And I think it's great that they're showing people that you can meet people on the road, but like sometimes it's just not as easy for everyone, and sometimes they're not going to connect with those people. So it's okay if you don't find someone that is like your immediate best friend and now you're going to travel together for the rest of your time, and or like you'll spend the whole day with them. I feel like that can definitely be like romanticized as well. But I have also met amazing people, while in my travels, and I have great memories with them. So, but it's not always going to be the case every single time.
Totally. So I want to do just really quick, like rapid fire solo travel questions. Number one, like what's your number one safety tip for females traveling alone?
Try not to arrive at night and don't walk around at night like the first couple of days. Like get to know the area before you go out. Because I don't want to say never go out at night because sometimes that's unrealistic, but just know the area. Make sure you're in like a lighted area and you feel comfortable.
Smart. And like you could do some research with like asking around
Absolutely.
for
Or
the
take a nighttime walking tour. That's one of my favorite tips,
Oh,
and people forget about that. And then they'll definitely show you those areas that are safe.
oh, that's a great tip. And then
Yeah.
you're not alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Next rapid fire. What are some recs of like your first solo trip, comfortable places to start?
So I went to Copenhagen, Denmark. I would definitely recommend that. I'm more of a Europe gal. I haven't been to Southeast Asia yet. Going this year, I haven't been to South America yet. I hopefully am going at one point this year. So a lot of my places are going to be in Europe, which is nice. Especially when you're coming from the States, I think it is a bit easier to get accustomed in that way,
Yeah.
because a lot of people do speak English, and they'll be kind of like your comfort places that would be back home. But yeah, Copenhagen, Denmark, Dublin, Ireland. So a lot of these places are kind of like college, university towns, great transportation, smaller cities that aren't super overwhelming. So another one would be like Lisbon, Portugal, which is like a little bit bigger, but like great public transportation, easy to get around, like a lot of great food options, great options for like day trips and day tours. Edinburgh, Scotland. There's so many of them.
I like have the travel bug right now. Okay. Continuing with rapid fire, we're going to do our ending segment, fun facts and favorites. What is your top self-care tip?
Ooh,
Travel.
can this be like? Can it be personal?
Yeah,
Or
please.
my favorite self-care tip is being in water. So I love taking baths. I know not everybody has access to a bathtub, but you can even do it in a shower. Like you can get a fun little shower bomb and like get like a good hair mask. But I love like baths, like lighting candles and like reading a book or like having a nice little podcast or playlist in the background. I'm a water sign, so I'm a Cancer, so that's something that I love doing.
Okay. Well, I think I know the answer after how we started this podcast, but what's your favorite way to move?
Oh, my favorite way to move. Zumba.
Oh, fun.
Yes, that's probably my favorite. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I love going to Zumba.
Okay, I'm going to swap this next question out to make it more geared towards you. What is your favorite place you've ever traveled if you have to choose?
Oh my goodness. I hate this question so much.
You could say a few if you want. Just rattle them off.
Taormina, Sicily was one of my favorite places, and then Mostar, Bosnia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Those were probably my top two.
I haven't been to either, so now I'm adding those to my list. Okay, lastly, what would be your last meal on Earth?
Oh, goodness.
I'm considering deleting this question going forward because it stresses everyone out so much. They think like this is going in the records. It's going to be their last meal.
Oh my gosh. I know. I'm like really trying to think about it. It would be a meal in the North End in Boston. I'm just not sure which one. Maybe like a good Alfredo. Yes. Italian, like a good Alfredo, a good like ravioli. I don't know. Some good Italian food loaded with like creamy sauce and cheese.
And you have to go in person because I love it over there in the North End of Boston. It's so cute.
It's the best. It's the best.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I feel like this was a jam-packed episode, and somehow for not being a travel podcast, my audience loves the solo travel episode. So thank you for coming on the podcast. Can you tell everyone where can the people find you, find your courses?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on here. You can find me at Emily Eats and Explores. I am on every single platform. I mostly hang out on Instagram. That's where my community is. You can find my course, which is called The Money Making Traveler. It teaches you over 30 ways to make money and travel, taught by myself and 25 guest experts. You can find that in the link in my bio, my Stan store. And yeah, I also have a membership called the Travel Boss Membership. If you are a content creator and you want more brand deals, I post brand partnerships, I post press trips, press opportunities in there 3 times a week. So you don't have to go out and look for them. You can just find them and either pitch or apply. So
amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to that episode. Please, please, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you just can't get enough of this podcast, go subscribe over on YouTube. You can see the full-length video episodes and shorter clips as well. You can find TikTok clips over at jenlauren with 2 N's. You can find Instagram Reels if that's your jam over on Instagram at jen_lauren with 2 N's, and even Dare to Self-Care Pod on Instagram. So you never have to go a day without Dare to Self-Care.